These days, we have a lot of access to so many talks on YouTube, on spirituality, on self inquiry, on various related topics. We have access to so many ebooks. I was just thinking that, in some sense, the kind of access we have to literature of all kinds, of course, but in our context, spiritual literature is just was unthinkable even 20 years, 25 years ago. Um, I was reading about someone who wanted to get a particular book, and they had to hunt in libraries and they couldn't find it. And I was thinking, how easy it is that we are able to listen to so many great talks, uh, just download ebooks. There is so much available right now. But I think it comes with a flip side, which we have to be aware of, is that I think the mind wants to sometimes just get caught in the trap of understanding more and more, just listening to different talks, reading different books. And there is nothing wrong with any of that, but I think it's very important to recognize that that is not going to effectively help us realize who we are. It can be an aid, but it is not the essential way inward. And what I find happens a lot is um, there is a lot of escapism also involved if we really look at it closely, because it's easy to listen to a talk or to read a book than actually um, deal with what's going on inwardly or outwardly. So there is a tendency um, for the mind to just engage in different conversations or listening to different talks, and so on and so forth. Um, but if we really look at it clearly, we can realize that anything that can be understood is not the truth. Of course, when we use the word truth here, we mean the supreme truth of our being. In a relative sense, of course, we can understand a lot by reading books or listening to talks, whether we are learning science or math or music, any field of activity in the world. Of course, we can understand the relative truths in those respective fields. But when we are talking of the ultimate truth of our being, or to use a very religious word, God, uh, we are not, we cannot make it an object of understanding. And that is an important recognition for us to have, um, because when I look at this phenomenon of uh, all these various, especially in the non duality space, um, the to use a neurobiology term, the left hemisphere of the brain gets activated a lot. And the same left hemisphere that is used for analysis and logic gets activated, and one thinks one can use that kind of a process to figure out truth, to understand it, to make their way into it. And I think there is a great fallacy there and a great trap there, which we have to be very aware of, because the primary question is, can truth ever be an object of understanding? Because in understanding, there is always the duality between the one who understands and the object of understanding. And if God can be an object of understanding, then the one who understands is somehow greater than God. And that is a logical fallacy, even if you look at it in that way. So the very subject that tries to understand, and any object of understanding, and the process of understanding itself are all happening within our field of awareness. And therefore, the awareness that is the ground in which everything happens can never be made into an object of understanding. And I think one of the reasons devotion plays a very powerful role is that it recognizes this inability of the individual mind to realize the truth. If we are able to see that the attitude of surrender, which goes hand in hand with true self inquiry, is an essential aspect of our spiritual journey, then we can see that understanding is not the way, surrendering is the way. And the only thing we need to understand in this journey is that it cannot be understood. Um, I listened to a quote of Sri Ramakrishna yesterday only, where he beautifully says, "Who can understand God? I don't even try. If the mother puts me down, I say Ma. If the mother keeps me up, I say Ma. If the mother keeps me happy, I say Ma. If the mother keeps me sad, I say Ma." So his attitude was one of complete surrender to the Divine Mother and seeing the hand of the Mother in every single moment instead of trying to understand or even trying to be awareness. So if we can see that even the attempt to be awareness, to abide as awareness, is all ultimately an egoic activity. It is the mind that wants to get realized, wants to get enlightened, wants to abide as awareness. So it's a very subtle trap, and therefore true self-inquiry and surrender are non-different, as Ramana Maharishi used to point out all the time. And yet somehow uh, it's easy to lose track of that and have this attitude of, even in meditation, have a very for the lack of a better word, a masculine attitude to to realize oneself. Instead, if we have the attitude of surrender and love, and see that love in everyone, and have this soft feeling of love and surrender, then it becomes a very beautiful journey where we experience the bliss of this one divine energy in everything that's manifest and in the awareness that's unmanifest. All the great masters have pointed this out, and every sincere seeker also, I'm sure, comes upon this. But I think it's worth pointing it out and being aware of this trap.